have to vent for a second, so if you don't want to listen to someone complain, just keep scrolling. He has an appointment with audiology tomorrow because he failed his newborn screening at the hospital, right? The appointment has been scheduled since he was 1 week old. Basically, at his 1 week checkup, they scheduled this appointment for audiology, but they couldn't get us in until tomorrow, which is now 7 weeks old. But also, these like newborn hearing screenings are somehow mandatory. So I'm getting letters from the state saying like, hey, have you got this scheduled? Your time is running out, blah, 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 because you only have so long to basically do this screening. So like I said, it's been scheduled for 6 weeks now. They called me today, the appointment's tomorrow, to tell me that my insurance won't pay. And she's not even necessarily clear on whether or not my insurance is out of network. She's basically telling me like, you need to call your insurance and see what's going on because I'm confused. It looks like you might be out of network, and if so, they're not going to cover it, and it would be $300. So I'm irritated for several reasons. Number one, at the hospital, my son passed on the left the first time, failed on the right. Then he passed on the right and failed on the left. So for me, the kid can hear. So for me, this screening feels a bit unnecessary from the beginning. So needless to say, I don't want to pay $300 for it. So I ask her, I'm like, is there another show in town? Because we live in a pretty small area and my gut says there's not. And she's like, no, we're pretty much it, unless you want to go to Lexington. We're literally going to Lexington for so many things for him anyway that if I don't have to go to Lexington, clearly I don't want to. Also, the clock is ticking because we are running out of time to get this testing done before like the deadline. And we wasted 6 weeks with this appointment that they're calling me the day before to tell me my insurance won't pay for. And so I ask her that. I'm like, isn't there a time frame with which this must be completed? And she's like, yeah, they're pretty strict about that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, right, so you guys are calling me the day before my appointment that I waited 6 weeks for to tell me that my insurance isn't going to cover it. And she's like, well, I was out last week because I just had a newborn granddaughter. And I'm like, okay, well, what about the other 5 weeks? And then she tells me the patient has a responsibility to make sure that the health insurance will pay as well. So you also should have made sure it was in network. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, as long as you can blame me, right? And she's like, nobody is blaming you, ma'am. I don't know, it just really rubbed me the wrong way because essentially she's using her newborn granddaughter as an excuse for why she didn't do her job to begin with, while simultaneously blaming me, who also has a newborn that actually lives in my house and wakes me up to eat every 3 hours, that I didn't check with my insurance to make sure that they were in network. But then I do call my insurance and they are in network, so now I have no idea what she's even talking about. So I call back to let her know, and she's like, oh, okay, cool, you'll owe $67. Like, how do you know how much I owe if you can't seem to figure out that they're in network? But also, why is this even mandatory if my son passed on both sides, just not at the same time? Like, I do not understand. For me, this just feels like another way that they can bill the insurance and line their pockets.